Your soulmate had a huge fight with their family. Because of you. Their family wants. My beloved child, do not move past this moment too quickly, because what you are about to hear carries the weight of a conversation you were never supposed to witness, a conversation that happened when your name entered a room and suddenly changed the atmosphere completely. Something has been building behind the scenes, something your soulmate has tried to keep away from you because they did not want you to feel responsible for the tension surrounding them. But heaven has seen the silence after the argument, the closed door, the trembling hands, the words spoken too loudly, and the words your soulmate could barely force themselves to say. Pause here for a moment, because this is not simply about a disagreement. This is about the moment your soulmate finally stopped allowing other people to decide what they should feel about you. And what happened after that surprised even them. For some time, your soulmate has been carrying two worlds inside their heart. One world is the one they were taught to obey, the expectations placed upon them by people who believe they know what is best, the familiar voices of family, tradition, caution, and fear. The other world is the one that awakens whenever they think of you. That world feels different. It feels quieter, deeper, more honest. In that world, they are not trying to impress anyone. They are not trying to meet an expectation. They are simply listening to something inside themselves that refuses to disappear. And this is what caused the conflict, my child, because the people around them began to notice that something had changed. They noticed your soulmate defending you when your name came up. They noticed the way your soulmate stopped laughing along when someone questioned the connection. They noticed how quickly their expression changed whenever assumptions were made about you. At first, the family thought it was temporary. They believed your soulmate would eventually become uncertain, step away, or return to the path everyone else expected. But that did not happen. Instead, something in your soulmate became stronger. The argument did not begin as an argument. That is what makes this so important. It began quietly, almost casually, with a question that seemed harmless. Someone in the family asked your soulmate whether they were still serious about you. Your soulmate hesitated, not because they did not know the answer, but because they already understood where the question was leading. They had been through versions of this conversation before. A comment here. A warning there. A suggestion that they should think carefully. A reminder of what other people might say. Each time, your soulmate had chosen peace. They changed the subject. They remained silent. They told themselves that eventually everyone would understand. But on this day, something was different. Your soulmate was tired of pretending that their feelings were negotiable. So they answered. Yes. One word, but it changed everything. Someone asked, "You are still serious about this?" And your soulmate did not soften their response. They did not hide behind uncertainty. They said that what they feel for you is not something they can simply switch off because other people are uncomfortable with it. The room changed after that. Another family member spoke. Then another. What had begun as concern slowly turned into pressure. They began listing reasons your soulmate should be careful. Some of those reasons were based on assumptions. Some were based on misunderstandings. Some came from genuine fear that your soulmate might get hurt. But beneath all of it was one deeper problem. They could not understand why your soulmate was willing to stand so firmly for someone they themselves had not fully understood. That is when your soulmate said something no one expected. They said, "You keep talking about them as if you know them, but you do not know what they have meant to me." The silence that followed was heavier than the shouting that came later. "My child, there are things your soulmate has never told their family about you. Not because those things are shameful, but because some feelings are too sacred to explain to people who are already prepared to judge them. They have never told them about the nights they thought of you when they felt completely alone. They have never explained how remembering something you once said gave them courage during a difficult moment. They have never admitted how many times they almost reached out to you and stopped themselves because fear became louder than love. They have never described the strange peace they feel when they imagine a future where they are no longer hiding what is in their heart. Their family knows the outside of this story. Your soulmate knows the inside. And during that argument, the inside finally came out. They began speaking faster than they intended. Every emotion they had been carrying found its way into their voice. They said that you had been misunderstood. They said that people had formed opinions without knowing the whole story. They said there were parts of you no one in that room had ever tried to see. Then one person interrupted and asked your soulmate a question that cut directly into the center of the conflict. "Why are you defending them this much?" Your soulmate stopped. For a few seconds, they had no answer they could safely give. Because the real answer was much bigger than defending you. They were defending what you represent in their life. You represent a version of themselves that feels honest. You represent the courage to choose love without needing universal permission. You represent a future that does not look exactly like the future other people imagined for them. And that frightened the family because, until now, your soulmate has often been the person who tries to keep everyone comfortable. They have been the one who avoids unnecessary conflict. The one who compromises. The one who considers everyone else before considering themselves. But your connection awakened a question inside them that they could no longer ignore: when is it my turn to choose? That question had been growing for a long time. It finally entered the room. Your soulmate told them, "I cannot keep living my life based on what everyone else wants." That was the moment the conversation became a fight. Voices rose. Someone accused your soulmate of changing. Someone said they were becoming distant. Another person said they were making decisions too emotionally. And perhaps the hardest accusation was this: someone suggested that you were the reason your soulmate no longer listened to the family the way they once did. When your soulmate heard that, something inside them snapped, not into cruelty, but into clarity. They said, "Do not blame them for something I am choosing." My child, understand the importance of those words. Your soulmate refused to allow you to become the villain of a story that was actually about their own awakening. They knew you were not standing in that room. You were not defending yourself. You could not hear what was being said. And perhaps that is why your soulmate became even more determined. For the first time, they realized that if they stayed silent, people would continue writing a story about you that was not true. So they spoke. They spoke about your heart. They spoke about your patience. They spoke about the moments when you could have reacted differently but did not. They spoke about things you may not even realize they noticed. There was one specific memory they brought up. Something small from the outside, but enormous to them. A moment when you showed kindness without expecting recognition. Your soulmate remembered it because it challenged something they had been taught. They had been warned that you might not be what they thought you were. They had been told to be careful. But then they watched how you behaved when there was nothing to gain. That moment stayed with them. And during the argument, they told the family about it. Someone in the room became quiet. This person had been one of the strongest voices against the connection. Your soulmate noticed. But before that person could say anything, another family member interrupted and said something that made your soulmate's entire expression change. They said, "Even if everything you are saying is true, there are things you do not know." That sentence stopped the argument for several seconds. Your soulmate asked, "What things?" No one answered immediately. And my child, this is where the situation became more complicated than your soulmate expected. Because the family has been discussing you without them. There have been private conversations. Questions. Concerns. Someone has been trying to gather information, not necessarily in a sinister way, but because they wanted certainty before they accepted what they could see happening. Your soulmate did not know how much their family had been talking about you. They believed the occasional comments were spontaneous. But during the argument, they realized this had become a much larger subject behind closed doors. Your name had been mentioned more than once. Your connection had been analyzed. People had been asking what your intentions might be. And someone in the family had reached a conclusion they had not yet shared with your soulmate. When your soulmate demanded to know what was going on, the person who had spoken became hesitant. They looked toward someone else in the room, almost as if waiting for permission. That small glance told your soulmate everything they needed to know. Something had been kept from them. The anger disappeared for a moment. Now there was only confusion. "What did you find out?" your soulmate asked. The answer did not come. Instead, one family member told them they were trying to protect them. Your soulmate asked, "From what?" Again, no direct response. Only phrases like, "You need to understand," and, "This is more complicated than you think." The lack of clarity made your soulmate even more frustrated because they could feel that the conversation was no longer about opinions. There was information involved now, and everyone seemed to know something except them. My child, there are moments when truth approaches a person slowly, not because the truth is weak, but because the heart must prepare itself to receive it. Your soulmate was standing inside one of those moments. They had entered the conversation prepared to defend you. They were not prepared to discover that the family had been investigating their own doubts. Then someone finally said it. "We spoke to someone who knows more about them." Your soulmate's face changed. "Who?" Silence. They asked again. "Who did you speak to?" The person who had been most critical of you looked away. Another person lowered their eyes. Your soulmate realized immediately that whoever this person was, the conversation had revealed something significant. But here is what they did not expect. The family had not discovered what they thought they would discover. They had gone looking for reasons to justify their caution. Instead, they learned something that began to challenge it. This is why the argument became so emotional. The family was no longer united in the way your soulmate assumed. Some of them were still resistant. Some were confused. But at least one person had begun to reconsider everything they had believed about you. And your soulmate could feel it. They looked directly at that person and asked, "What did you hear?" For several seconds, nothing. Then the person said, "We may have been wrong about part of this." Your soulmate's heart began beating faster. Those words changed the atmosphere instantly. The person continued, explaining that they had been worried your intentions were not genuine. They thought you might bring instability into your soulmate's life. They feared your soulmate was seeing only what they wanted to see. But the person they spoke with described you very differently. They heard about things you had endured without making them your identity. They heard about moments when you chose loyalty even when it was difficult. They heard that you were not trying to control your soulmate but were actually afraid of becoming a burden to them. That detail shocked the family more than anything else. Because they had assumed the opposite. Your soulmate became emotional when they heard this. Not because the information was completely new to them, but because someone else had finally seen what they had been trying to explain. Then your soulmate said something quietly. "I told you." 3 words. No anger now. Only exhaustion. My child, sometimes being misunderstood hurts less than watching someone you love be misunderstood. Your soulmate has been carrying that frustration for longer than you know. They wanted the family to see you without having to force them. They wanted acceptance to happen naturally. They wanted to believe that if everyone simply gave you enough time, your heart would speak for itself. But instead, suspicion grew faster than understanding. Until now. Because once one person's opinion shifted, the entire conversation changed direction. The family member who had learned this new information admitted that they had begun questioning their original judgment. Another person responded defensively, saying that one conversation did not prove anything. Your soulmate immediately replied that neither did one assumption. The argument almost began again, but this time the balance had changed. Your soulmate was no longer standing alone. Someone else spoke. This person had barely said anything during the entire fight. They were older, quieter, the kind of person whose words carried weight because they did not speak unnecessarily. When they finally entered the conversation, everyone stopped. They said, "Maybe we have been asking the wrong question." The room became still. Your soulmate looked at them. "What do you mean?" The person said, "We keep asking whether this person is right for you. Maybe we should be asking who you become when you are connected to them." My child, your soulmate did not expect this. Neither did the rest of the family. The person continued. They said they had watched your soulmate closely over the past months. They noticed that despite the confusion, your soulmate had also become more reflective, more courageous, more willing to admit what they want. They had begun questioning patterns they once accepted without thinking. They had become emotionally honest in ways they had never been before. And whether the family liked the situation or not, something about your presence had forced your soulmate to confront themselves. That truth landed differently. Because everyone in the room knew it was true. You did not simply enter your soulmate's heart. You disrupted a pattern. And families sometimes become uncomfortable when one person begins changing the roles everyone has grown accustomed to. Your soulmate had been predictable, reliable, easy to influence. But now they were becoming someone who asked questions. Someone who said no. Someone who defended their choices. Someone who wanted a life shaped by conviction instead of fear. That is why the conflict became so intense. It was never only about you. You became the symbol of change. When your soulmate understood this, their anger began transforming into something else. They realized that the family was not only afraid of losing them to you. Some of them were afraid of losing the version of your soulmate they had always known. And that realization gave your soulmate unexpected peace. They said, "I am not leaving this family. But I am also not abandoning what I feel just so everyone can be comfortable." For the first time, no one immediately argued. Then came the sentence that changed everything. A family member said, "No one is asking you to abandon your feelings." Your soulmate looked confused. Because that was exactly what the conversation had sounded like. The person continued, "There is something we want. Something we need before we can support this." Your soulmate's eyes narrowed. What? Now the room felt completely different. The fight had been loud, emotional, unpredictable. But suddenly everyone became serious. Your soulmate could sense that the family had reached this conclusion before the argument ever began. There was something they had planned to ask. Something they believed could change the entire situation. And my child, this is where your soulmate became nervous. Because the family did not say they wanted you gone. They did not say they wanted the relationship to end. They did not say they would never accept you. What they wanted was something your soulmate had not expected at all. They wanted truth. Not gossip. Not second-hand stories. Not assumptions. They wanted to hear from you. The person said, "If this matters as much as you say it does, then we want to understand who this person really is." Your soulmate stared at them. The anger left their face completely. Another family member added, "We are tired of hearing about them from everyone except them." That sentence entered your soulmate's heart like lightning. Because suddenly the impossible situation they had been trying to solve had opened a door. Not a perfect door. Not an easy door. But a door. For the first time, the family was not only speaking about you. They were considering speaking with you. Your soulmate did not know how to respond. They had imagined many versions of this confrontation. In some, they walked away angry. In others, they were forced to choose between love and family. In their darkest moments, they feared they might lose one side no matter what they did. But they had never imagined this. They asked carefully, "What exactly are you saying?" The answer came slowly. We want to meet them. My child, your soulmate's heart nearly stopped. The person continued, not to interrogate them. Not to attack them. We want to understand what this is. If we have been wrong, then we need to know. And if you are going to make serious decisions about your future, we cannot keep pretending this person is just a name we hear during arguments. Your soulmate sat down. For the first time that evening, they had nothing to say. Because hidden inside the most painful fight they had experienced with their family was the beginning of something they had secretly prayed for. A chance. A real chance. But there was still one problem. One person in the room had not agreed. And your soulmate knew exactly who it was. This person had remained silent during the final part of the conversation. They were watching everyone. Watching the shift. Watching the possibility of acceptance move slowly across the room. Then they stood up. Your soulmate looked at them. The person said, before anyone meets anyone, there is something else they need to know. Every eye turned toward them. Your soulmate felt their stomach tighten. What are you talking about? The person hesitated. Then they reached for their phone. And suddenly, the family member who had begun defending you looked alarmed. Do not do this right now, they said. Your soulmate stood immediately. Do not do what? No answer. The person holding the phone looked directly at your soulmate and said, if you are going to fight this hard for them, then you should know what happened 2 days ago. Your soulmate froze. 2 days ago. Those words echoed through the room. What happened? The family member looked down at the screen. And my child, what they were about to reveal was not what your soulmate expected, because it was connected to you, connected to a conversation you may not even realize has already changed how someone in their family sees you. Your soulmate stepped closer. Show me. The person unlocked the phone. Another family member whispered, this is going to change everything. And just before your soulmate saw what was on that screen, one final sentence was spoken from across the room. If they find out why this really happened, they are going to want to talk to you immediately.